We acknowledge that Tri-Cities Community Television operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation. We thank the Coquitlam who continue to live on these lands and care for them along with the waters and all that is above and below.
A group of concerned community members gathered at the Coquitlam Library City Center branch to write letters in different formats, hoping to draw the attention of politicians who seem to have been ignoring the Bill C-61 for long. They're hoping to see the introduction and passage of Bill C-61, which aims to establish minimum standards for water quality and quantity, ensure sustainable funding, and legally recognize the human right to safe drinking water for First Nations communities. They encourage everyone to write letters, contact their members of parliament, and demand for the bill to be passed ASAP. For Tri-Cities Community TV's Local Journalism Initiative, I'm Yuna Fahim.
So, good evening, Group 176. It's wonderful to have so many of us out tonight for this very special occasion that we are going to work on the issue around water rights. And so before we begin, we always start with lighting our Amnesty International candle. Around this candle, as you know, is barbed wire that represents the wire behind our prisoners of conscience that we normally would, in reality, light the flame for, the flame that represents the hearts that we want to uphold, the souls we want to uphold. For those who cannot light their own flame, we light it for them. So virtually, I light this candle. We're in a library right now, so we're really not supposed to set the library on fire accidentally or purposefully. Anyway, and around all of that, I have some also ribbon here that represents barbed wire. This is the work we do for those who can't do justice for themselves. And I also want to acknowledge that we work and live and play on the land of our Coquitlam Nation people, and we live on it and play on it and work on it very respectfully and grow in our knowledge of how we can do the reconciliation to undo the work that we have done damage to their land and our land that we live on. And so I now want to turn over the meeting to Omar. Where are you? There you are. Thank you. Thank you, Omar. And our candle is virtually lit.
So today we are gathering to write letters to the federal government to demand that they introduce and reintroduce and pass Bill C-61. And C-61 is about the right to drinking water for First Nations communities. Currently, there are 38 First Nations communities with ongoing long-term drinking water advisories. Back in 2021, the government agreed to a settlement after First Nations communities launched a class action lawsuit, and the settlement agreed to introduce legislation around clean water by November 2022. Now, they introduced that legislation and didn't do anything with it. They just let it sit until it died when Parliament was prorogued and nothing was passed. Now, at Amnesty International, we've been campaigning against a series of human rights violation bills that the government's introduced, and they rammed through those pretty quick. So we know what they can do when they want to pass legislation. We've seen it, and we've seen the negative impacts that those are having. So It is unacceptable that in 2026, 5 years after the settlement, we still have not seen legislation passed. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report urged all levels of government to acknowledge the historical impacts of government policies on Indigenous health and to implement healthcare rights, including access to clean drinking water. We're writing letters. So there's different options that we have today. We have some pre-written letters that people can sign. We have paper that we can write our own letters based on our own words. We have some of these materials to make some kind of art and bigger papers to write large letters that we can send all to Ottawa and show our concern for the lack of action to address the right to water for First Nations communities who are impacted by ongoing colonialism on these lands. So that is what we're doing today. We're also going to play some videos as we write that have come from the Amnesty International campaign team that sort of describe the issues so that we have a good sense of what is going on while we write. So we'll have that play in the background. You can listen and sort of absorb some of the information that's coming through.
This legislation is a critical and important step towards addressing decades of harm towards First Nations. We are calling on the Government of Canada to address the surge in crisis and reintroduce Bill C-61 immediately and honor the 2021 water settlement. We were told yesterday by Canada, by the Prime Minister himself, that they intend to delay reintroduction of Bill C-61 until the spring of 2026. This is not acceptable. First Nations have waited too long. Municipalities, towns, and cities, when under a water advisory, do not have to wait that long. We have also heard that Canada intends to make amendments to the legislation, potentially weakening it. This is completely unacceptable. The legislation, Bill C-61, recognizes the role of First Nations in drinking water and wastewater management. It acknowledges our relationship with water, and it recognizes that we should have the autonomy to make our own decisions about our own water. It allows for the creation of standards and regulations. This is so important. As of right now, First Nations do not have enforceable regulations in place. It allows for the creation of a funding framework and First Nations governance over water. These are all critical components and cannot be overlooked.
I'm from the community of Neshkandaga in the remote of Northern Ontario. And I'm here to speak about our water issue. It's been way too long. 30 years plus a boil of water advisory, 11,264 days. I have this cup of water. I'm looking at it if I'm going to be able to drink. That's how much trauma we have. We have to drink from the bottle of water, 1.5 liter per person, to bathe, to drink, to eat. That's the kind of service we got. We have bottle of water, unlabeled, that's coming. That's provided to us today. Our system is not working. The system of Canada and Ontario is not working. We are treaty partners with the lands, or Anishinaabe. That's our homelands. And here we're treated like, third world. I am in the third world.
So this is the interview I'm going to play now with the minister at the time after they agreed to the settlement. It's fascinating they didn't follow through on this settlement.
The federal government has reached an agreement in principle that resolves a national class action lawsuit over the lack of safe drinking water in First Nations communities. The agreement includes a commitment of at least $6 billion to support reliable access to safe drinking water on reserves. And it provides a $1.5 billion in compensation for those who've been deprived of clean drinking water.
We have suffered so much. We have lost so much. We have endured so much.
Children do not even swim in our water anymore. And we are all aware that in all First Nations that water is life and we consider it very sacred.
Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller is in Bella Bella, BC. Thank you for joining us today, Minister. I want to start by asking you about something that was said at today's news conference. Chief Wayne Munius asked, why did this issue even have to go to the courts? Why did it require all of this struggle to get to a solution?
Yeah, and it's an important question to reflect on our relationship with Indigenous peoples, Katie. I think what's important to reflect upon today is the fact that we avoided a court situation. We never preclude communities from exercising their legal remedies. But when they decided to go to court for this to get reparations for past harm, and there's a component in today's announcement that deals with the harm occurred for, in some cases, over a quarter of a century, there was also the insistence on making sure there were real, tangible commitments with teeth for the future. And that dual-pronged approach and the insistence on making sure that the government of Canada could be held to account is a testament to the lack of trust that has characterized our relationship, where Canada has not respected its obligations. This is a government that has put safe and clean drinking water on the map for Indigenous communities, for Canadians to realize that we need to do better. And the announcement today that reflects all in about $8 billion of compensation and forward commitments is something that we need to do as a country to make sure that everyone has access to safe, clean drinking water, which hasn't been the case with a number of these communities. So it is the chief's words actually speak for themselves and are reflective of how we need to move in the way forward, which is a respectful, cooperative relationship outside the court. And I recognize that perhaps a different government wouldn't have done this and would be in court despite arguing some particularities of law that are completely unnecessary, because we're all on the same page in getting clean water into communities.
But would the government have even done this if it had not been for the threat of this massive class action lawsuit?
Well, we've made significant commitments to Indigenous communities, particularly in a critical infrastructure and water, making sure that people have clean, safe water. Those commitments have resulted in the lifting of 108 advisories. Those communities haven't had to go to court, but there was an issue in and around trust and in and around reparations for past harm, and in and around commitments for the future. So there's about 200 plus communities that will be beneficiary of this, depending on the uptake in the class size, which we'll leave up to the lawyers. But it also is a testament to the fact of where we are as a country, where communities can exercise their legal rights. The class action mechanism exists for communities that feel they have suffered similar harm. And we were more than glad to sit down with them and discuss in a cooperative way how we move forward outside the courtroom process, and not in that adversarial fashion that really gets nothing done. This will get something done, and we'll make sure, most importantly, that the next generation will not grow up without clean drinking water.
Okay, so you say that you don't want this to be an adversarial relationship, and we heard you say that at a news conference that you don't want to be in the courts, but there are other issues, other legal battles that you're engaging in right now. Take a look at Jordan's Principle. So are you going to take a new approach when it comes to fighting these issues in the courts dealing with Indigenous communities?
Well, we've actually done so. And when communities decide that we are not living up to expectations, there is sometimes a process that involves courtrooms. We don't want to be in a position to block that process. And when that happens, we sit down. Take, for example, the very well publicized court cases in and around both Jordan's Principle and the harm suffered by children that were taken into the broken healthcare system. We've been sitting down for the last year or so trying to hash out the terms of how to settle this in a good way, and we've made progress. We've put billions and billions of dollars into moving towards substantive equality with vis-a-vis Indigenous children and non-Indigenous children.
But this is
we'll
still
continue to do so.
I don't mean to interrupt, Minister, but this is still in the courts.
No, it's fine.
The government is still trying to overturn the Canada Human Rights Tribunal decision. That legal battle is still going on.
Yes, and recognize that there are three moving parts to this, including two other class actions where we are sitting down with council trying to hash out a settlement and how we would move forward in ensuring that the children are properly compensated. That is ongoing, but it's also something out of respect that we don't discuss in the public sphere, as frustrating as that may be to all Canadians. We need to respect the process. We're going to work at this just as hard, if not more, than the way we worked at getting to this process and endpoint. But that is something that that I will do with my team, with the legal teams of both the Assembly of First Nations and the Caring Society and others as we move forward on many, many moving parts that do have some complexities to them, including the jurisdiction of the CHRT, which I understand people find frustrating that we object to, but there is a general court process that that has three parties with the same claims and competing processes that we have to all piece together. So that is what it is. We'll compose with it and make sure that children aren't harmed in the process and get that compensation that they are due.
So you're not going to change tact, even though today you're talking about how you don't want to be in the courts. There's no change in strategy here.
Well, the tact, Katie, is that we are sitting down with those parties and working in a positive way, but we have undertaken to them some confidentiality that we will not discuss in the public domain. Those talks are ongoing. They are productive, but it's something that I can't speak further to. Our objective and my objective to my team is that we will continue to ensure that First Nations children that were harmed by the broken healthcare system in Canada, child welfare system in Canada, are compensated. But no decision of a court can fix that system definitively. We have to move towards transforming that system to one that is focused on prevention as opposed to intervention, which has characterized it up to now and prejudiced Indigenous children. That's why we enacted C-92 child welfare legislation that allows communities to assert their own self-determination and lift up their child and family laws. That's why the Prime Minister was in Cowessess to sign a historic agreement. We'll keep moving on with those agreements. But I do recognize that that is a slow process, and a slow process specifically because we don't want children to fall through the cracks. And that is where we are as a country. We need to compensate those children, but we also have to transform the system so that this model does not reproduce itself.
Late last year, your government announced it would miss its target to lift all long-term drinking water advisories in First Nations by March 2021. Where does that project stand right now in terms of progress? Well, as you heard today, this is an undertaking that goes well beyond the undertaking that was made in 2015, as ambitious as it was. We do recognize that there are a number of communities that still have outstanding long-term water projects, but they do have work underway, and it has slowed with COVID. Communities have shut down. I've spoken to them myself, but there is hope there because we have some good news coming out in the next couple of months. There are communities just ready to do the testing, have clean water, just waiting for those to come back. But we have to make additional investments, and that's why this announcement today was so important. The Chief of Curve Lake, for example, is not on a long-term drinking water advisory, but wants long-term commitments with respect to getting water to all her community members. That will take millions and millions of dollars of capital investments. That would not necessarily have fallen under the strict confines of the LTWA lift commitment of the Prime Minister in 2015. But we know that we need to do more to get real projects into communities. One of the other communities, Chippewas of the Nawash, wanted and got another $35 million for a plant that will serve its people better. And that's what we got to recognize. It isn't a final date of March 2021. It's an ongoing commitment that has to survive government changes and has to reflect the commitment that is needed today. It's why there's legal teeth to this agreement today, which will span over years.
4 bottles given to us, huh? 6 people live here.
Mm-hmm. And they gave you 4 bottles for 6 people?
Oh yeah.
How long is that supposed to last you?
A week, I guess.
A week?
They want to give us this week. And I'm supposed to drink this, bathe with this, cook with this.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that usually last you a week?
No. I just make fun of it because the government is so cheap, eh? They probably think that we're not civilized people. And that's sometimes the way I feel. You know, because I don't live like any other Canadian citizen.
Nishkantka is a remote fly-in Ojibwe First Nation 500 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay, Ontario. The reserve sits at the edge of 281 square kilometers of water, the Attawapiskat Lake. They have been under a boil water advisory for 20 years. Unlike the more than 160 First Nations across Canada under water restrictions, Nishkantka has a water treatment plant. Built in 1993, the plant only worked for 2 years. Since then, the community has boiled water, and when that's not possible, flown it in.
We just flew into Nishkantka on this supply plane. They're unpacking the water behind us. We're gonna go check out the community.
I kind of listen to everything. Frank Sinatra to powwow music to the gangster rap.
75% of Nishkantka's band members are under the age of 30. Most of them have never known clean water.
Do you remember a time where you didn't get bottled water deliveries?
It's always been bottled water or the water plants, or getting sick.
What's it like for you being in this community and drinking bottled water every day? What's that like?
It bothers me the fact that it's been this way for so long. Okay, from first contact to now, you know, that's a fucking long time. And we don't have that, like now, 2015. They're cloning animals, for fuck's sake. There's so much going on right now. We don't have, you know, tap water to drink.
After 20 years, Nishkantka has some leverage in their fight for clean water. Nishkantka and 8 neighboring First Nations, collectively known as the Matawa First Nations, sit on North America's largest chromite deposit, the Ring of Fire. The site is said to be worth tens of billions of dollars. Chromite is used to make stainless steel. A Toronto-based mining company has bought the full rights, and the province of Ontario has earmarked $1 billion development dollars. But the project can't go ahead until the Matawa First Nations agree to the proposed mining. If the project does go ahead, the profits would pay for access roads and a new water treatment plant for Nishkantka, giving the reserve clean water for the first time in 2 decades.
The meeting about the Ring of Fire and potentially mining, what are your thoughts about that meeting and what could happen for your community?
Those opportunities and those choices we make kind of impact our land forever. And I'm not sure if I'm cool with that, to be honest with you. Like, you could take all that out, but you can't give us clean water. That's not fair, I don't think so. So, like, of course, like the whole financial situation, like, we want to develop, but it's kind of like we're not given enough options.
We're about to go on a water run in Nishkantka. These boxes are full of water and we're going to deliver them to each house. Oh, we're going here? Okay. And how much will they get? 2 boxes?
Yeah.
Okay. Just 2 liters?
Yeah, and
Okay.
two bottles.
Brought you some water.
Thank you.
In the city, I'd easily go through 1.5 liters. They have to use this to cook and clean and drink. You know, that's not much. How long have you been delivering water for in Nishkantka?
Since 10 years, eh?
Do a lot of people up here get sick from the water?
Yeah, I seen them. I see when their hands are, you know, like that.
Plus, the water does. See, look at that.
Is that a rash?
Yeah.
And that's from washing in the water?
Washing the water, yeah.
Does everybody get that?
Some does.
Now I'm kind of immune to it. You develop like, you know, your skin gets a little thicker. Before, I remember coming here and just like, why am I so red? But yeah.
Nishkantka's main goals, should Ring of Fire mining development go ahead, are access to clean water and social assistance for their ongoing suicide crisis. The Matawa nations are meeting to unify their demands to the government and voice environmental concerns. Former Chief Peter Munias has previously spoken out against mining.
the Mattawa Chiefs meeting.
Yep.
They are hoping that if mining exploration happens here, that they can leverage the money from mining into a new water treatment plant. I know that you previously said they'll have to kill me first before mining should be allowed here. I'm wondering where do you
I said that for a purpose, okay? I wanted these mining companies to come and talk to us. I want the government to come and talk to us before they say yes to any company to go in there. It's just like me going into your back door and not asking you, start digging over there. It says, what are you doing? I'm digging. You know, I'll ask you later. You're not going to agree with me. Nobody's going to agree with me if I start doing that. And that's exactly what they're doing to us. That's why I put a stand on that. You're going to have to kill me before you start developing.
My name is Omar. I'm a member of the Tri-Cities Amnesty International group. We are gathered here today to write letters to the federal government demanding that they pass Bill C-61, which is a bill dedicated to the rights to clean drinking water for First Nations communities. We are not the only group writing these letters. We're joining groups across the country with Amnesty International, who are writing letters every month to demand that this bill be passed, because this bill has been was first introduced almost 5 years ago and still has not advanced forward. And we want to uphold the rights to water for Indigenous communities here in Canada.
My name is Mary McNaughton. I'm here with the Tri-Cities Amnesty International group, and we're here today at a special meeting to advocate for the people who live in 38 different communities across Canada who do not have clean water. And this has been going on for several years. The government has been promising water treatment plants for these communities, but as of now, they're still without it. They're on water rationing for drinking, cleaning, and bathing. And the government has promised them clean drinking water and has not lived up to their promises. So we are just writing letters. It's a year-long program to bring the government to live up to their promises.
I'm Yunus Fahim for Tri-Cities Community Television's Local Journalism Initiative.